And then it's only a matter of time and intensity, how long you do those activities for, and with what intensity you do those activities for, that eventually determines your outcome. The reality is true in your life as a leader. Like I've said before, leadership is a 24/7 thing. And so if you're wildly inconsistent with the way that you show up in your personal life day to day, expect that your business is going to have wildly inconsistent results.
Welcome to Leading with Force, the podcast where we help you grow your business and lead your people with passion and purpose. I'm Brian Force. I appreciate you joining me for this episode. Let's dive in.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining me for another episode. I appreciate you taking the time to listen. If you are getting value from this podcast on whatever platform you're listening on, please go ahead and like, share, subscribe, send this to a friend. It really helps me with my mission to reach as many people as possible. And then head on over to brianforce.com and sign up for our weekly newsletter. I spend a lot of time really creating actionable guidance that you can use in your business right now. So head on over to brianforce.com, subscribe to the podcast. I appreciate you being here. Let's get back to the show. As entrepreneurs or business owners or leaders in our businesses in general, one of the most frustrating challenges that we're constantly trying to overcome is just trying to figure out why things aren't really clicking. We have a business, we have a system, a way of doing things, we have the tools, we have the people, but it's not all coming together. We feel like because we're experts, if we had someone like us in every role in our business, that it would all just be perfect and it would all come together. And so we don't know, is it the right tools we don't have? Is it the right people we don't have? What is the glue that's missing that will bring it all together? Because right now, the business is just kind of right here. It exists really as a job for the owner/operator. They're constantly in a state of stress, putting out fires, fixing everything that's broken, and their growth becomes stunted. They kind of stay in that same place for long periods of time. This is the way in which most small businesses operate for years at a time. Just kind of chugging along, knowing they have a lot of problems, not really being able to figure them out, constantly causing stress for the people that thought they were going to be owners, that end up just having a second job, and never really putting together why it's not working at the level they know it's capable of working at. And then eventually, one of two things happen. Either they get extremely burnt out and they give up and they go do something else, or they put all the pieces together and it finally clicks. And today I want to talk about the latter. How you can go in your business from feeling like this is just another stressful job and it's not working the way that I know it can, to actually being an owner of a well-run, well-rounded, well-oiled machine. The truth is, though, in order to be able to get there, to put all the pieces of the puzzle together properly, you've got to realize that the glue is your leadership. And your leadership doesn't start when you walk in the door to the office every day. Your leadership is a 24/7, 365 responsibility that starts with you leading yourself. And this is just the cold, hard truth. Most entrepreneurs expect something from their business that they do not expect from themselves. They expect consistency. They expect proactivity. They expect discipline. They expect people to show up ready to go with intensity and vigor every single day, to think dynamically and to go above and beyond willingly. That's what people expect from their business, but they don't expect it from themselves. And until we start to lead ourselves in the way that our businesses need to be led in order to succeed on the level at which we want them to succeed, we're going to stay in that chunky middle of businesses that never really get over the hill. And so today we're going to talk about the 5 keys to self-leadership that will have an immediate impact in the results you're seeing in your business. The simple fact is this: energy is the most contagious drug in the known universe. And so what that means is that the way that you get used to showing up in your life is the way that you can expect everyone on your team to show up in your business, because you as the leader set the standard. And the standard you set is how you interact with the world 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, not just at work. And the reality is, even though as entrepreneurs we do work a lot, most of our day is spent outside of the office. But that doesn't mean that everything we do outside of work doesn't have a direct effect on our business. In fact, quite the opposite is true, because it is impossible to be one person outside of work and a totally different person inside of work. Your habit stack, your energy, your intentionality, the way that you show up will bleed over. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. The 5 self-leadership keys that will have a direct impact on your business. So let's dive in with number 1 and just get straight to it. The first self-leadership key to impact your business is developing a higher level of self-awareness. Self-awareness is simply a deeper understanding of your natural tendencies, your strengths, your weaknesses, your blind spots, and your opportunities for growth. When you have a deeper level of self-awareness, you can maximize your strengths and inputs into the business. You can compensate for your weaknesses or gaps, and you can focus on your opportunities for growth day in and day out. Which, by the way, if you were to look at this from a macro point of view, is exactly what you would want your entire business as a whole to be doing. Playing to its strengths, understanding its opportunities for growth, and creating self-awareness around where your team can improve. We're going to talk about exactly how to implement that on a business level, but it starts with you as a leader developing a deeper level of understanding of yourself. So let's get a little bit more actionable and granular here. There are 3 different types of self-awareness. The first is operational self-awareness. This is essentially a deeper understanding of the ways in which you are most effective. For example, are you a night owl or a morning person? I actually don't happen to believe that either of those things exist, but some people do. In which working styles are you most proficient? For example, I find that I do my best creative and impactful work when I don't have a load of task-oriented stuff hanging over my head. So in order to play to my strengths, I tend to be a person who arrives at the office or wherever we're working about an hour earlier than everybody else on my team in the morning, simply for the sheer ability to knock out all of the minute stuff that I feel like if I don't get it done now is going to be hanging over my head. It's going to clog my brain. It's going to affect my mental capacity to be creative. And so knowing that that is an operational style of mine, I plan my schedule to give myself that time early on in the morning rather than later in the afternoon. I don't like to stay later than everybody else, but I will get there earlier than everybody else because that allows me the capacity to come from a place of easy flowing creative juice because I don't have a bunch of stuff hanging over my head. It has also inspired me to leverage as many things as I possibly can that I'm not the only person that can do. Whenever I start to feel very task heavy in our business again, my mind automatically goes to who else in this business can do this 80% as well as I can. Because if you can do it 80% as well as I can, I would rather leverage it to you and then help coach and guide you to get to 100% than to keep it on my plate and watch the plate continue to overflow. And so having that operational self-awareness is incredibly important. What are your natural strengths? What do you do best? When do you do it best? And where are your gaps? And where are your gaps in your opportunities for growth? I'll give you one more example that kind of shows the flip side in my operating style. I'm an incredibly high D personality on a DISC test. I'm a DI, mostly D. I like to move very quickly. I don't mind breaking things. I would rather fix something and come from a place of action than to be in tinkering mode and constantly waiting to launch. And so for that reason, I do very, very poorly. I get some of my worst work done with very unstructured mastermind type meetings. If we have a team meeting with no hard agenda, or if one of my team members reaches out to me with an issue that they don't already have some semblance of a solution for, that they're just getting feedback on, I don't operate well in that capacity. I don't want to sit there with you for an hour and have you ask me a million questions and help you work through an issue and come back with feedback loops and solutions. I want you to do that on your own. And then I want you to come to me for feedback with the things that you've already figured out. And I don't want that to sound harsh. What I'm saying is that there are leaders that really thrive in those exploratory ways. They really thrive in helping people find solutions from the ground up. I know about myself that I move way too quickly to be as effective in that operating style. And so my team understands that they should not come to me with an issue that they haven't already tried to figure out several solutions for that I can give them feedback on. Otherwise, I'm going to have less impact on that problem. The second key to self-awareness is relational awareness, and this is a very, very big one. This is the understanding of how your communication style and the way that you relate to your team members affects them, their happiness, their productivity, and how the business goes around. This is a huge blind spot for many, many leaders. One of the most important parts of self-awareness as a leader is understanding the positive and negative effects of how you interact with every single person that's a direct report with you on your team. This takes years not only to master, but even to find some level of competency in, but it's something to be incredibly aware of. And that's why we call it self-awareness. It's just to deepen your understanding of it. Every single human being is unique and different, and it's incredibly important to start to develop an awareness around how to communicate effectively with every person that you regularly communicate with on your team. There are certain people on my team that I can absolutely hold accountable and call out in front of the rest of the team, and they will not be offended by it. They will actually appreciate that level of accountability. There are other people on my team that I would not dream about doing that to in 1,000 years because they have a much lower tolerance for that sort of public scrutiny, if you will. I have to build them up in front of others, and I have to quietly hold them accountable individually, one-on-one. That is the most effective way to get results from that person without destroying their confidence, because it's not about that person's individual performance or whether they should be held accountable or not. It's about how you hold that person accountable. If that person gets deep insecurity having those conversations in front of others, then you're going to crush their confidence and completely lower their productivity if you try to hold them accountable in ways that some other team members would prefer to be held accountable. There are other team members that I have, specifically this is good with high-level athletes that need public accountability. They respect it more. They respect the fact that they are part of a team and their individual contribution is being put to the spotlight and they need to up their game a little bit. And one-on-one accountability is actually less effective with that personality type. This is true in many regards. Accountability is just one example. It's the way in which you communicate at all levels with your team. Whether you're gentle or more stern, whether you are playful or more rigid, every person on your team is going to have a different communication style that maximizes the effectiveness of you pouring into them. And so being aware around how those different personalities respond to different communication styles allows you to become a little bit more malleable as a leader and get the most out of your people by meeting them where they're at emotionally. And the third type of self-awareness is aspirational self-awareness. This is simply a deeper understanding of your own motivations as a leader. What are we truly trying to accomplish in this business and why? Are we doing something because our peers and colleagues and other people in the industry are doing something? Are we doing something because we want to live a certain lifestyle, accomplish certain goals, or do we want to build a certain type of community? Do we just do this because it's what we've always done? Understanding your true motivations as a leader and as an entrepreneur in general is a truly important thing to have self-awareness around because it is the catalyst, the unconscious catalyst for every one of the decisions that you make in your business. You have a motivation as a leader, but sometimes the motivation that we say we have, what comes out of our mouth, isn't truly our internal motivation. And slowing down and spending time really considering why you do what you do and what you want to do with this business is truly impactful because whether you like it or know it or not, it affects everything you do in your business. So those are the three kinds of self-awareness. Let's talk about how to implement them in your business. So let's start with operational self-awareness. We talk about understanding your operating style more. Let's talk about your business's operating style. How do we develop self-awareness as a team around our operating style? One of the most impactful things we've ever done in our businesses is implement 15-minute morning power-up calls. We do this every single morning where the leader or managing partner of our business will run a power-up call with their team. What we do on these calls is look at the scoreboard, our major KPIs. We look at the sub KPIs beneath that affect those, and we look at where the gaps are, where the bottlenecks are, make an execution plan for the day to get moving in the right direction towards the scoreboard. So for example, I use our management company as a really great example because it's very process heavy. Every morning we look at the processes that are off track, the amount of tasks that are overdue, where our inbox is if it's overflowing, and we hold ourselves accountable as a team to creating an execution plan to get moving in the right direction if we're off course. What this does is it brings to the forefront where we're winning and where we're losing every single day. We can see what types of processes are most commonly off track. And if that happens 2-3 days in a row, now we know this is a growth opportunity. We do these things really well all the time. These things we don't do well at all this week or this month or this quarter or this year. And then as a leadership team, we know, hey, we're weak in this area. We've got to create a more permanent solution. Do we need remedial training for whoever's in the seat on the bus? Do we need a different person in that seat on the bus? Do we need a better tool or more resources to help this part of the system move more fluidly? We create a lot of self-awareness around our business by being consistent around visiting it every single day. This can also be true in your individual life, by the way. And that's an important point because as we discussed before, how you show up in your business is how the business is going to show up for you. Ask yourself, what would be the power of having a regular power up with yourself every morning? Where are you winning? Where are you losing? What are your personal KPIs? What is off track right now? What have you learned about yourself and your strengths and your growth opportunities? What resources or new people or relationships do you need in your life to close those gaps? Having a regular power-up cadence with yourself brings a lot more awareness to not only how you as an individual can live a more meaningful and fulfilling life, but how you can have an ultimate impact on your business. And there are many ways to do this. 15 to 30 minutes of regular reflection every morning, asking yourself a templated series of powerful questions that you journal on every single morning. There are many, many ways to execute on this. What's important is spending regular time with yourself, asking where the gaps are, what are you doing well, where are you winning, where are you losing, and what is the action plan to close that gap. Get in a regular habit of doing that, then take that concept to your business, and I guarantee you, you will see immediate impact. And this brings us to self-leadership key number 2, consistency. Consistency in your life and consistency in your business are the key to long-term sustainable success. This is the simple truth. If you know what you're doing in your business and you know how to succeed, then it's simply a matter of how consistent your business is at the daily ongoings and actions that it takes to eventually hit your goals. And then it's only a matter of time and intensity, how long you do those activities for, and with what intensity you do those activities for that eventually determines your outcome. The reality is true in your life as a leader. Like I've said before, leadership is a 24/7 thing. And so if you're wildly inconsistent with the way that you show up in your personal life day to day, expect that your business is going to have wildly inconsistent results. This is a simple matter of fact. There are very few truly consistent leaders that don't see consistency from their teams and don't get consistent results from their business. It is also true that there are very few leaders that have zero consistency in their personal life that have very consistent business results. The two are absolutely married. As I said before, energy is the most contagious drug in the known universe. And what you bring energy-wise every day to your business is how your business is going to become a staple of how your business operates. And so when it comes to your daily ongoings, consistency is key. Are you consistent in your daily life? Do you have a consistent habit stack, a consistent routine? Can your people depend on you to show up the same way day in and day out as a leader? Because what that does is it sets the standard for how your business is going to operate. Highly consistent, disciplined people have highly consistent, disciplined standards for their business unconsciously. Because people are going to be attracted to the way that you show up if you are consistent and disciplined. If I am building a team and the leader of that team is highly talented and highly capable, but they kind of come and go as they please, they have bursts of genius and energy, and they have times of deep negativity and toxicity and stress and anger. I know in their personal life, they are very inconsistent with how they treat their body, what they eat, their exercise routine, all the things that go into making them who they are as an individual are very inconsistent. They're inconsistent emotionally, they're inconsistent physically, they're inconsistent mentally, they're inconsistent with their engagement in the business, but they're highly talented. Do you think that the people that work underneath that leader are going to show up and be massively consistent about doing quality work every single day at an elite standard, at a world-class standard? Absolutely not is the answer. But the reality is even B or C level talent will rise to the occasion if the leader that they work under is incredibly consistent, because that sets a standard for how this business operates. And I want you to ask yourself as a leader, are you consistent in the way that you show up in your world, in your life? And how does that translate to your business? Are you someone that kind of has standards around when we work in the office and when we don't? Do we kind of have standards around what our activities look like every day, but it's okay to be a little lax on those? Do we kind of have standards around what our KPIs are and whether or not we hit them and what the consequences of not hitting them are? Do we kind of have standards like that for ourselves around when we wake up in the morning, around how we treat our minds, around how we treat our bodies, around how we use our vessels physically, around what we do and do not do, around what our non-negotiables are? Do we have those in our life, and do we have those in our business? And my guess would be if you look at yourself and you don't have a lot of those standards for how you interact with the world personally, then you're probably not running a business that has a lot of those standards, or if they do, they're probably being violated pretty regularly. And so you've got to ask yourself, what is the connection there? Are people on your team going to show up and really adhere to a standard when you don't adhere to a standard in your personal life as the leader? This is, again, what I mean by energy is the most contagious drug in the known universe. When I work underneath a leader that has high standards for themselves as a human being, I know the standards of that team are high because that leader would accept nothing less. Ask yourself, what are your personal standards? And how are they a reflection of the standards of your business? And if you see a divergence there, you have work to do as a leader. That's great insight to have. You probably do have some work to do, but I'd rather know that and be able to do something about it than continue to wonder why my business isn't meeting my expectations. Number 3 key of self-leadership that will translate to your business is purpose-driven decision-making. And what I mean by purpose-driven decision-making is every single decision that you make in your life and in your business should align with your core values. The core values for you as a human being and the core values for your business. Now, a couple of things. If you don't have established core values yet, that's a really great place to start, because it's very difficult to set standards around how you interact with the world as a human being and how your business operates if you don't have a fundamental set of values by which you always abide. So what are core values in the first place, and how do you really cement them so you know if your decision making is aligned with them or not? Well, your core values are normally 3 to 5 different values that you abide by, whether in your personal life or in your business. And you'll usually have many different principles that align with those core values that become your rules to abide by to ensure that the decisions that you're making are always in alignment with your core values. So let me make that really simple with a great example. One of my core values is respect in my personal life and in my businesses, but respect is a core value of mine. To treat other human beings with respect at all times is a deep core value of mine. Now, how do you know if you're living by that core value? Over the years, I've broken down core values into guiding principles that I can articulate that I always abide by. So one of my biggest guiding principles that aligns with respect, this has to do with my marriage. One of my guiding principles is that I will never say a word about my spouse in front of another person that I would not say if she were present. Doesn't matter if I'm just having a day and my wife is kind of bugging me. I'll never be on the golf course with my best friends and complain about something that's going on in my marriage and say anything that I wouldn't say if my wife wasn't sitting in the cart right next to me. That's a guiding principle that has to deal with my core value of respect. I have another one, which is probably the biggest guiding principle that I articulate in my leadership classes and to my team and my businesses because it drives me crazy when people don't do it. My guiding principle is that I always return the shopping cart to the shopping cart return, and I expect others to do the same thing. I feel like that's such a simple way to show other human beings respect, and it annoys the crap out of me when other people don't do it. So I have many guiding principles that align with my core value of respect. So that is what core values look like in your personal life and also in your business. What are the core values of your business? How do you do business? What does your business stand for? How do you interact with the world? What do you bring to your community? You need to come up, if you haven't already, with 3 to 5 core values around your business. And then over time, you will create guiding principles that speak to each one of your core values. The reason that this is so important is because those guiding principles become the thing that aligns all of your decision making with your core values. And when you articulate this continually to your team, you can then begin leverage more decision making to your team, and rest assured that the decisions that they're making are in alignment with their guiding principles and speak to the core values of the business. So for a great example, in our management business, one of our core values is integrity. And that is a core value of all of our businesses. Specifically with the management side, you deal with a lot of high stress situations. Not everybody's happy all the time, and there's oftentimes nothing that we can legally do about it. There are just a lot of situations that come up. There's a lot of regulation and red tape. There are only so many things that we can do to make a tenant happy sometimes, and there are things that we're not allowed to do, and so it can create tension at times. And that means that you have to deal with a lot of thankless people and thankless phone calls and stressful situations. And how we maintain a level of integrity and how we interact with people who are not always having the best day is very important to our business. One of our guiding principles around our integrity is that it is our job in every interaction to make sure that that was the most positive interaction that that person has that day. So even if it's somebody that's furious at us about something that we have no control over, our guiding principle of ensuring that that is the most positive interaction that person has that day ensures that we're always in alignment with our core value of integrity. I hope that makes sense, because that's incredibly important when it comes to decision making. Because as you transition from operator to true owner in your business, you're going to need to ensure that your team is making decisions purposefully in alignment with the core values of your business. And the way that you cut through the guesswork is to create those core values, ingrain them in your team, and then set guiding principles around each and every one of them. Our number 4 self-leadership key is building a resilient mindset. This one is incredibly simple and incredibly powerful. The reality is, a lot of times we struggle as leaders because we're just not where we want to be yet. And it creates stress and it creates frustration. It can create financial hardship for us. It's really difficult to go lead a team of people when you're actually struggling financially on the back end because the business is not where you need it to be to really live anywhere near the life that you envisioned for yourself when you started this thing. It can be really difficult to not show up and blame others and not show up and bring your negative, toxic energy to the table, which only creates more problems. So it's important as a leader to build that resilient mindset because it sets a tone not only for yourself, but for your team. As a leader, you need to be the most resilient person in your business. You have to get used to dusting yourself off and moving forward, learning and growing and iterating, but always getting back up and pushing forward. Because again, consistency, intensity, and time are really the only three things that matter in between you and the success that you're looking for in your business. How consistently you do things, with what intensity, and for how long. And that how long is usually going to be a little bit longer than you envisioned when you started the business. And so you're going to have to be resilient. If you let all of the stress and the frustration and everything weigh you down, then you're not going to show up as your best self in your personal life, and then you're not going to show up as your best self for your team. Now, I've had to learn a lot of hard lessons in this particular category, and they haven't always worked. I have had businesses that have failed because I wasn't resilient enough as a leader, and I let my frustration and lack of positive energy become a vortex that really sucked the business in until it dissolved entirely. I've also had businesses that have gone completely in the wrong direction very early on. We've gotten into debt, we've made mistakes, we've had to learn a lot in a very, very short amount of time, and without developing that resilient mindset, I would have missed out on some of the best business opportunities of my life because we would have thrown in the towel too early because we were so frustrated with the way things were going. I think a really important thing to contextualize here is that your business is always going to challenge you. Even when you're hitting all of your financial goals, even when it feels like the business is making more money and succeeding at a higher level than you ever thought possible, it will absolutely challenge you in ways that you didn't realize were possible because you had never been at that level. I promise you this. If there's nothing else that you hear from this episode, hear this. Your business will always challenge you because at every level of success you have, it's still a new level. And there's still a ways to go on the journey. When you become more successful, you just have bigger problems to solve, but you still have problems to solve. And so you have to have that resilient mindset. Resilient mindset isn't something you just develop once and then you're good to go. You have to practice that. You have to develop it regularly like a muscle over time. But if you allow yourself to get enveloped by the stress and the controlled chaos and this idea that at some point in the future, things in your business should just be perfect, then you're going to get swallowed up or burnt out eventually. You have to be the most resilient person in your business, and that starts with practicing resilience in your daily life. For me, that's meant a lot of personal mental work over the years. Everything from meditation and breath work, consistent journaling, to a lot of conversations with coaches, mentors, therapists, my inner circle. Developing that resilient mindset is about developing a community of people around you that share a similar growth and resilient mindset. If you allow yourself to be isolated, you'll start to believe that everybody else in your world is doing way better than you are and you're failing, and it'll double down your stress. The reality is most people are dealing with the same type of chaos that you are. And when you surround yourself with people that are also growth oriented, that are going through similar challenges, you raise each other's tides. And so developing that community is incredibly important. And then taking regular time with yourself to meditate, to journal, to read, to slow things down and practice gratitude. Be grateful for the challenges that you have in your world. That's how you develop a much more resilient mindset. And then also remember that at the end of the day, we're all flying a bajillion miles an hour on this crazy rock through space. And in a million years, no one will ever even know we were here in the first place. I don't want that to sound depressing. It should be empowering. You only get 1 or 2 or maybe 3 lifetimes in this world. Go enjoy all of the blessings that they provide you, even the challenges, because those make you stronger. So develop that resilience mindset yourself and then bring it to your team every single day. That is one of your key roles as a leader. And last but not least, one of the self-leadership keys that will impact your business is intentional environment design. I know that's one you probably don't hear a whole lot when we talk about leadership, intentional environment design. What I mean by that is designing your environment personally and in your business with intention to build the culture and the community that speaks to what you're trying to accomplish. So for example, I noticed that our productivity really lacks when we work in low energy office environments, meaning there are no windows in the office, there is no chatter and murmur, that doesn't feel like there's a positive flow of energy. When everybody's coming in and basically sitting silently and working at their computers, we're not nearly as productive as when there's some chatter, like a sports team. There's some background noise, there's some light in the building. You bring more energy into the room, you tend to get better results because your people are more energized. That is also true, by the way, in your personal life. In your personal life, if you tend to be wildly disorganized, let's say your house is a mess, you can probably bet that the way in which your business operates has some level of reflection of that. I cannot stand when our office is disorganized or messy and like low energy. It drives me absolutely crazy. I actually take great care to instill that value in our team, that we create a tidy environment, we open the windows, we get some background noise, and we create some energy in the room every single day. If I don't happen to be the first person in the office, which I usually am, and I roll in and people are sitting in silence and there's papers everywhere, I will stop everything down into our organized, the shades are open, we've got a little background music going, and the level of energy has been picked up. I'll even make everybody stand up and shake their bodies out and get some positive energy back into the room. Consider that in your own life as well. Do you create high energy environments? Are you a tidy and organized person? Do you live in a low energy environment? Are you disorganized? That will be a reflection of what your business is like in some sense. It might not even be physically, but think about your digital environment. Is your digital environment absolutely a mess? Is it hard to navigate? Is the way that your digital environment in your business set up hard to navigate, not easy to use? One is probably a reflection of other. I see very few leaders that are highly organized that have incredibly disorganized businesses. I see very few disorganized people that have incredibly efficient processes. You've got to create that intentional environment in your business, because that's going to give your people, you have to intentionally create that environment in your business, because that is going to help your people execute on their game plan more efficiently every day. They've got to be working in the right environment with the right energy, the right organization, and that's going to remove a lot of friction and increase productivity. When you make it really easy for people to show up with energy and an environment that they enjoy and a digital environment that they're working in that is efficient and organized, you're going to get a lot more done. So think about that in your own life and how it might be a reflection in your business. Start to see the parallels there and think about the adjustments that you can make. Whew, all right. We have talked about a lot today, but those are the 5 self-leadership keys that will have an immediate impact on your business. Developing self-awareness, consistency, purpose-driven decision-making and alignment with your core values, building that resilient growth mindset, and intentionally designing your environment. If you start to work on each one of these self-leadership keys, I guarantee you over time, you're going to see a massive impact on your business. I'll say it one more time just to emphasize. Energy is the most contagious drug in the known universe. And every single one of these key leadership principles is a measure of your energy in that aspect of your life, which will be a measure of your energy and focus into that aspect of your business. And since you are the leader, you set the tone, your team will rise to the standard and the tone that you set. So think about where your opportunities are in these 5 different areas and develop a plan to close those gaps, set the standard and tone for your business, bring the level of energy up, and watch your team respond. I really appreciate you hanging out with me for another episode. I would love to hear how these 5 keys are making an impact on your business. Drop a comment, get in touch with me. I appreciate you listening, and I'll see you next time. Thanks again for joining me for another episode of Leading with Force.
If you found this episode valuable, please consider subscribing to our channel and leaving us a review. And then head on over to brianforce.com and sign up for our newsletter, where we bring you all sorts of guidance on how to build your business, grow and scale, and lead your people with purpose. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you next time.